Beyond the Gates spoilers tease that Hayley Hamilton finds herself increasingly entangled in a situation. She cannot control the growing tension between her and the Dupree family, especially Danny Dupree, Bill Hamilton's ex-wife. It begins with subtle unease, late-night arguments, glances filled with unspoken resentment. Hayley, feeling overshadowed, starts questioning her husband's motives and intentions more and more. Bill's continued involvement with the Duprees doesn't sit right with her, and Danny's presence becomes the unspoken third party in their marriage. It starts over little things. A text message from Danny about their kids. A missed dinner because Bill had to attend a school event with Naomi or Chelsea. Hayley understands that children come first, but it's not just the kids. It's Danny. It's the lingering emotional residue that never seems to wash away. Danny calls, and Bill answers. Danny asks, and Bill listens. And to Hayley, that feels like betrayal. Their first major fight happens after Bill skips a prenatal appointment. Hayley sits alone in the examination room, one hand resting protectively on her belly, the other clutching her phone. When she finally returns home, she's boiling. Bill tries to explain Naomi had a panic attack at school, Danny couldn't get there in time, and he had to step in. Hayley doesn't care. You always step in for them, she shouts. But you're never here for me. Bill tries to apologize, but Hayley throws down her trump card. She's carrying his child. It's not just a baby. It's a bond. It's leverage. It's the future, and she demands that he prioritize it. But instead of growing closer, this declaration seems to push Bill further away. He grows quiet, thoughtful, suspicious even. And Hayley sees it. The way he watches her differently. The way he stops touching her stomach as he used to. She deflects, distracts, reassures. But something has shifted. What Hayley doesn't realize is that the Dupree family is not just a personal threat, they're a political and social one. They hold secrets, information, things that, if revealed, could shatter Bill's entire world. His career, his credibility, his image. He knows this, and so do the Duprees. Danny, especially, uses it with subtlety. A well-timed comment in front of a donor. A knowing glance at a campaign event. Bill is cornered by loyalty and self-preservation, constantly playing chess while his personal life falls apart. Hayley begins isolating herself. She stops attending fundraisers with Bill. She avoids Danny altogether. Her world becomes one of uncertainty, paranoia, and suspicion. She searches through Bill's things. She checks his phone while he sleeps. And what she finds only fans the flames. Photos of Danny with the children, smiling, happy, a family unit where Hayley feels like the outsider. She confronts Bill again. This time, it's not a request. It's an ultimatum. I want you to cut them off. Danny. Those kids. All of it. It's us now. Bill recoils. For the first time, true anger flashes across his face. Those are my daughters, Hayley. You knew that when you married me. Danny is their mother. You can't erase them. Hayley storms out, tears streaming. But something tells her she needs to act fast. She doubles down on the pregnancy. Begins posting baby updates on social media. Talks about nursery themes. Starts shopping publicly. She wants the world to believe. She needs Bill to believe. But Naomi is smart. Observant. She notices inconsistencies. The way Hayley never actually shows ultrasound pictures. The way she avoids talking about symptoms unless prompted. One afternoon, she confides in Chelsea. They start piecing things together. And what they suspect is unthinkable. Hayley might not be pregnant at all. Chelsea, more impulsive, decides to confront Hayley. She does it privately at first, under the guise of bonding. She asks about the due date. The hospital. The doctor. Hayley falters. Her details don't match up. That night, Chelsea tells Bill everything. Bill doesn't want to believe it. He thinks Chelsea is being cruel. But the seed is planted. The next morning, Bill confronts Hayley gently, almost tenderly. He asks if she wants to go to the next appointment together. Hayley flinches, then recovers. Sure, she says, but her eyes betray her. Bill doesn't wait. He makes a few calls. Quiet ones. He contacts the clinic where Hayley claims to be receiving care. There's no record of her. None. Not under her name. Not under an alias. Nothing. When Bill returns home that evening, he doesn't speak. He doesn't yell. He just hands Hayley the printed records. And waits. Hayley breaks. She cries, pleads, insists that she was pregnant at first, but lost the baby and didn't know how to tell him. She says she was scared he'd leave her. That she panicked. That everything spiraled. But Bill hears none of it. What he hears is betrayal. Manipulation. A lie so deep it fractures the foundation of everything they built together. The divorce is swift. Quiet, but public enough to stir rumors. Danny doesn't say anything, but she watches from a distance. Not gloating. Not triumphant. Just sad. She once loved Bill. She sees now that he is broken in ways she can't fix. Still, she lets Naomi and Chelsea visit him. She encourages it. For all his faults, Bill is their father. And despite the chaos, he tries to show up now in a way he hadn't before. But the real twist is yet to come. Naomi finds a letter in an old box in Danny's attic. It's addressed to Bill. Dated years ago. Before the divorce. It's from Danny. In it, she confesses something unexpected that she once covered for Bill. That during his early political career, he had committed a serious ethical bribe taken to secure votes in a district he couldn't win. Danny buried the evidence. She had the connections then. And she did it for the family. For the girls. Now Naomi knows. And she doesn't know what to do. Her father is already reeling from the fallout with Hayley. But this secret could destroy him. Or redeem him, depending on how he handles it. She goes to Chelsea. They argue. Chelsea believes they should destroy the letter. That it's the past. That nothing good comes from digging it up. But Naomi can't. She takes the letter to Bill. He reads it in silence. Then folds it. Looks out the window. It was a long time ago, he says. But I won because of that. Everything since came from that lie. Naomi asks what he'll do. And Bill says, for the first time in years, I don't know. Because the past, no matter how deeply buried, never stays hidden forever. And now it's knocking on his door again. Bill Hamilton stood in his office, holding the letter Naomi had given him. The silence was thick, every breath echoing with consequence. That single sheet of paper threatened to unravel everything he had built over the past decade: his reputation, his career, his family ties. Danny's quiet sacrifice all those years ago had buried the truth, but now it had resurfaced through the hands of his daughter. And Bill couldn't ignore it. He took a deep breath and picked up the phone. Not to call a lawyer or a fixer, but to call Danny. When she answered, the silence between them said more than words ever could. You knew I'd find it one day, he said. I hoped you wouldn't, Danny replied. But Naomi's smart. She deserved to know. You protected me, Bill murmured. Why? For the girls. You were their father. They needed stability, not scandal. You needed a chance to be better. Bill hung up that night with a decision pressing on his chest. He knew what had to be done, but he also knew the cost. Redemption would not come cheap. The next morning, he called a press conference. No aides. No handlers. Just a man stepping into the fire. He confessed everything: a bribe, the cover-up, Danny's involvement in protecting him. The media exploded. Allies distanced themselves immediately. Donors pulled funding. But something unexpected happened too. People listened. And some, surprisingly, respected the honesty. Naomi and Chelsea watched from home. Danny did too. None of them felt relief. Only a strange mix of grief and pride. Bill had finally taken responsibility. The fallout was immediate. An ethics investigation was launched. Bill stepped down from his position, publicly declaring his intention to cooperate with authorities. He issued no excuses. Just the truth. In the weeks that followed, something shifted in the dynamic between Bill and his daughters. For the first time in years, he was truly present. Not the politician. Not the fixer. Just their father. He cooked meals, asked real questions, and started listening instead of defending. Naomi, always skeptical, began to see him as a man capable of change. Chelsea, ever emotional, forgave him faster. Dani kept her distance. She was proud of him but wary. Years of quiet sacrifices and heartbreak weren't easily forgotten. But when Bill sent her a handwritten letter thanking her for everything, for shielding him, for raising their daughters with integrity, she cried. For the first time in a long while. Meanwhile, Hayley Hamilton had all but vanished from the public eye. After the divorce, she moved to Arizona, living under a different name, seeking anonymity. She had lost everything: her marriage, her public image, her credibility. The pregnancy life followed her, whispered about in the tabloids until the media found something juicier to chase. But Hayley wasn't done. Quietly, she resurfaced in a very different way. Rebranding herself as a women's wellness coach online, she began building a new platform, preying on the same performative sincerity that once defined her marriage to Bill. Her followers knew nothing of her past, only that she spoke passionately about truth, healing, and starting over. Back in Bill's orbit, life moved on. He accepted a teaching position at a community college, lecturing on political ethics with a transparency he never had before. The irony wasn't lost on him. Every lesson came wrapped in lived experience. Every story had jagged edges. Chelsea started studying journalism, determined to be the kind of reporter who caught the lies her family had once hidden. Naomi pursued law, interning at a nonprofit focused on political transparency. Both daughters, shaped by the sins of their parents, were building futures dedicated to accountability. And Dani, she finally took a step for herself. She published a memoir. A quiet, elegant reflection on motherhood, marriage, betrayal, and resilience. It didn't name names, but readers understood. It became a bestseller not because it was scandalous, but because it was honest. One night, Dani and Bill met again. Not romantically, not nostalgically, but as two people who had been through a war and somehow made it out alive. They shared a coffee, talked about their girls. And when they parted, there was a soft kind of closure between them, not reunion, but peace. Months later, Naomi invited everyone to her law school graduation. It was the first time the entire extended family was in the same room: Bill, Dani, Chelsea, even Elliot, Dani's quiet partner. The air was tense at first, but Naomi's speech cut through it all. She spoke about justice, about the long road to truth, about how good people can do bad things and still find their way back. Her voice never wavered. And when she looked out over the crowd, she met each of their eyes in turn. We don't get to choose where we come from, but we do get to choose who we become. Afterward, they all stood together for a photo. Bill beside Dani, Chelsea beside Naomi. A complicated, fractured, imperfect family, but a family nonetheless. And somewhere far away in her new life, Hayley scrolled past the photo as it went viral online. For a moment, she stared at it. Then she locked her phone, turned back to her ring light, and smiled for her audience. Everyone had moved on in their own way. Some toward redemption, some toward reinvention. But the past had left its mark on all of them. And in the end, that was the truth no one could escape. Years later, the past resurfaced again, but not in the way anyone expected. Naomi Hamilton, now a rising star in public ethics reform, was asked to sit on a federal oversight committee. The invitation didn't just reflect her competence. It symbolized something larger: that someone could come from scandal, from a family marred by deception, and still stand tall in public service. But it also came with scrutiny. Reporters, opposition figures, and watchdogs began digging into the Hamilton legacy again. One document surfaced: a previously unreleased internal memo from Bill Hamilton's early political office that contradicted his public confession. Though he had owned up to accepting a bribe, this document implicated a second breach, one he had never acknowledged: a backdoor deal with a housing developer that left hundreds of low-income families displaced. It wasn't just a moral failing. It was deeply personal to Naomi, whose legal work was now focused on housing justice. Naomi confronted Bill in his modest new home. He had grown older, grayer, softer. The years had humbled him. When she showed him the memo, his face collapsed inward. "It was worse than I thought," she whispered. "Yes," Bill said quietly. "It was." He explained that the deal had been one of the compromises made when his career was still hanging by a thread. Danny had never known. Neither had the girls. The bribe had been easier to admit because it felt like a single lapse. This was systemic. Naomi gave him a choice: release the information himself or watch it leak. He chose to speak. Bill penned a public statement and released it without ceremony. The backlash was swift, but more muted than before. He had no power left to lose, only reputation. But his honesty gave Naomi even more credibility. People admired the way she handled it direct, without theatrics, anchored in accountability. In the wake of the second scandal, Chelsea began a podcast called Legacy Unwritten, focused on children of public figures navigating their own truths. She interviewed others like her, sons and daughters of disgraced politicians, media stars, corporate leaders. The show found an audience. It became a platform for truth-telling without shame. Danny, watching her daughters find their voices, felt a renewed sense of purpose. She began mentoring young mothers navigating complicated co-parenting dynamics. She published a second memoir, this time under her full name, embracing the chaos that once nearly consumed her. Meanwhile, Hayley Hamilton's brand began to unravel. A former associate published a tell-all blog, exposing Hayley's carefully curated lies and manipulative tactics in both her personal and professional life. Her followers turned on her. Sponsors pulled out. Her entire empire of healing and light crumbled almost overnight. She relocated again, this time under a different alias. But the cycle followed her. For Hayley, truth had become a commodity she could never truly own. The Hamilton-Dupree family, as fractured and complex as it had been, slowly became something rare, a unit of people who had survived the worst of themselves. They gathered each summer now at a lake house Danny had purchased upstate. There were arguments, debates, and occasionally the sharp edges of the past poked through. But there was also laughter, storytelling, healing. At one of these gatherings, years after the scandals had faded from the headlines, Bill sat at the dock beside Naomi as the sun dipped below the waterline. He looked at her, his voice unsteady. "You saved me twice," he said. "First by telling the truth. Then by making me face all of it." Naomi squeezed his hand. "You saved yourself, Dad. I just made sure you didn't stop halfway." And that was the heart of it. Not redemption for show, but for legacy. For the daughters who dared to look at the full picture and demand better. For the ex-wife who protected what she could without losing herself. For the man who fell and stood back up, not to regain power but to make peace. There were no parades. No national forgiveness. Just the quiet, lifelong work of rebuilding. And in that quiet, the truth finally found room to breathe.